welcome to the Investing Success Show. I'm your host, Brian Patton, along with my co-host, Adam Whitmire. Adam, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
So we are talking about...
We're talking continuing money talk.
And enjoying your job. You know, back in the day, I think I told an earlier podcast about feeling like I got out of jail when I left my first job out of college because, frankly, I hated my boss, and I always wondered if I actually saw him on the sidewalk, if I would try to run over him and kill him.
Or walk the
It's
other
a bad
direction.
it's a bad thought
That's
to
pretty
have.
bad,
but
actually.
he was mean as a snake.
That's pretty bad.
So, you know, that was a valuable experience for me, though, to realize that life's too short to work somewhere that you hate, and work a job you hate, or work for a boss you hate. So it sort of set me on a path to try to figure out how to become wealthy. And, you know, growing up in a little small town in Mississippi, I always had this idea, if I ever became a millionaire, you know, that would be the end of all. And I soon realized that just being a millionaire, you know, having a net worth of $1 million really doesn't do that much. It's about cash flow. So I set on the path of trying to create cash flow, and I did that through investment real estate, as you've done yourself. So today I'd like to talk about some myths. I've been reading this book by Chris Hogan called Everyday Millionaires, and he is a cohort of Dave Ramsey. My wife got me this book for Christmas, and they basically study. It's the largest study of millionaires ever. About 10,000 millionaires they studied.
That kind of reminds me of the Millionaire Next Door when they did that
it's very
study.
similar to that.
Yeah.
And it's there are actually 11 million millionaires in the U.S.
And what qualifies you to be a millionaire?
Just net worth of $1 million.
Net worth of $1 million.
So that could be in your house. It could be in 401ks. And there's some, I think what you had talked about earlier about from a planning strategy of becoming, and I don't know that our goal here is to teach people how to be a millionaire. Our goal is to help people, and especially our children. We've been talking about that, is how do we influence our children, what we've learned about,
and get the most out of life, and you know, have a lot of the most positive benefits about life. We've talked about before, it's not about arriving. Once I become a millionaire, I'm there. Okay, once I retire at 65 or at 40 or 35 or whatever it is, it's not an end game. It's not an end date. It's the moment you're on the path. Mm-hmm. Because once you're on the path, you don't even have to be there to get excited about it. And so it's about living day-to-day principles that we want to pass on to our kids that have allowed us to be successful, that have given us a good end result. But it was the result of a lot of day-to-day little small and simple acts and small and simple habits. And
it's about enjoying the journey.
So,
you know, throughout this, we might mention, you know, we have 6 myths here and truths about becoming or about millionaires in the U.S. So it's not about, we're not trying to tell you how to become a millionaire. We're trying to help you understand, if you use some of these principles, or if you think about what an everyday millionaire is and does, and how they handle money, that'll help you in the long run. Whether you never get to become a millionaire status or not, that's not really the point. The point is to know how to handle money. And, you know, our society really doesn't teach us. It doesn't teach our children how to handle money. We don't, you know, I think you said your daughter had a class in school.
We taught her how to write a check. She was so proud. We were setting up her first account. She's look, I already know about finance. I had a class at school, and they taught me how to write a check.
I know everything there is to know about finance.
That's what she thought. And then she wanted to borrow our credit card to go buy some more shoes because she loves shoes.
Well, I was amazed, you know, a couple of my college kids, you know, they were taking classes in college, and here I am, a real estate guy, and they really didn't understand mortgages. And I thought, my gosh, have I not taught you anything, you know? Mm-hmm. But they're really not learning much they might learn it in college, but they're really not learning anything in grammar and high school. So our point is here to pass along some of our thoughts and some of our beliefs on money, and in hopes to help them at least not have to work for a mean old snake of a boss like I had to.
So it's the funny thing is, you know, I tell my kids all the time, you know, they want to buy this or want to buy that. First of all, we try not to tell them no. You know, and I know that's contrary.
Never tell them no.
Instead of no, we tell them, sure, you can. Sure, how are you going to pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just get them thinking, oh yeah, you can have, oh, you want that? That'd be great. Yeah. How are you going to pay for it? So what kind of ideas you have, they have a little bit of
gets an entrepreneurial mind
get them
going.
thinking. They've got a little bit of an allowance that they make from doing certain things. We have the responsibility, the chores that they don't get paid for. That's part of being a responsible member of our family. But then the things that they can do to earn extra money or do things and to make money so that they can know, what to do with it. But
being an entrepreneur is fun. I remember back when I did have that earlier job I was talking about. It was back when the Braves were doing really well. And I don't know if you remember the hype that was going on in Atlanta during that time. And they were selling out of Braves memorabilia. I mean, it was just like selling out of the stores. And me and my wife were up in Cherokee, North Carolina, and they had one of these little stores there had these. They weren't really made by Indians, but they were tomahawks, and they were made from river stones and a little stick, and they were painted, had little feathers on them. So I think they were selling them for $2. And I walked in the store. I said, "How many of these do you have?" She said, "Well, those right there." I said, "No, do you have any in the back?" "Well, I think so." I said, "I'll buy all of them." So I bought 40 of them, and I took them to my office there in Buckhead, and I sold them for $8 and $10 each. And I bought them for $2, and I sold them for $8 and $10 each. And I didn't make that much money. I guess I made $300 or so. But that kind of stuff, boy, that drives me, and that was cool. That was exciting.
My entrepreneur ventures, I sold pencils in middle school.
Middle school, okay.
Yep, I'd go buy them at the CVS or whatever whatever store I get and buy some pencils. And we had this game where you would play this game, you try to break the other person's pencil.
Oh, I remember that.
And so we would get people kind of excited about the game. And then when they kept breaking pencils, I just happened to have a box of brand new pencils.
That's the funniest
50
thing I've
cents
ever
a
heard.
piece. So you get them going on the game and then start selling them pencils because
that's brilliant.
That was my first entrepreneur.
Did you score?
venture.
Did you take those pencils and score them with a knife so they break easier?
The way I did it is because I knew how to do it well, and so I was like the champion. She had championships, and then I intentionally lost so that someone else to become a champion, so that to create additional hype in pencil sales. And so
I had no idea you were such
was
a
my entrepreneurial.
That's like hustling.
Look, I didn't know. Obviously I had.
That might not even been legal in Georgia back in the day.
Pencil sales. Either way, I made some money. It worked out. The thing I'm trying to teach my kids now is not to just spend everything.
Yeah.
That you have just because you have it, right? They get money, they know, oh, I need to go spend all this, or I want to buy something. They spend 100% of it, and we do that again as adults. Mm-hmm. Most people, their budget is their paycheck.
Right.
If the paycheck goes up,
point. They spend more money.
They spend more money. If it goes down, they spend less money.
Well,
right?
They get a raise of $400 a month, and they go buy a new car. It's $500 a month.
That's right. And so the point is, you can't spend all your money.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how much you make. If you make $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month, it really just
look
doesn't
at some
matter.
of the famous athletes that made $200-300 million over their lifetime,
and
they're bankrupt.
Got in more trouble than they would have if they haven't done it. So there was a buddy of mine who's a financial planner, who's done really well financially, and he says that he's learned not to give people money just because they need it. He's, in his mind, giving people money, people that are bad at managing money, it's like giving alcohol to an alcoholic, right? They're going to continue to do worse, to be bad at managing it, do worse things with it. So it's teaching them how to manage it was the best first step.
Aren't all millionaires, they inherited their money, right?
Sure. No,
actually.
that was not the case. What statistically, I think inheritance
the stat says 75% of millionaires received zero inheritance. 8 out of 10.
79% received zero inheritance.
Basically, 8 out of 10 received nothing.
So they earned it.
They earned it. They made it themselves. And only 3% inherited $1 million or more. So that tells you that the majority of American millionaires are made it themselves.
There was a client I mentioned before. A client I had one time when I was doing financial planning, and they had saved consistently 10% of their income. I think he worked at UPS, and when they retired in their 60s, they had plenty of retirement. They travel every month. They have 7 kids. They go visit those kids. She was a stay-at-home mom. He worked at UPS. They saved 10% of their income. They were millionaires when they retired, and they had plenty of money. And I asked her, I said, what would you would you do anything differently with your money? She said, I wouldn't have saved as much money. She's like, we could have technically done what we did off of 5%. You know, we could have used the other 5 toward other things, family activities and things like that. And some people feel like that, you know, saving 15% is the best number. That's an individual thing. I think in our home, we do 10% is our number. But, and ultimately at some point in time, that breaks off into 5% short-term, 5% long-term, or whatever those needs are.
But the sad point is that most Americans don't do that. I mean, that they're actually spending more money than they make.
That's right. So what's the principle? Pay yourself first,
right,
and then pay your bills with whatever you have left over.
Right.
And people say, well, then I don't have enough to pay my bills. Well, then your bills are too high. You have too many bills.
Right.
It's the habit of not spending all of your money. How will you ever have money to invest if you spend everything that you have every time you get it?
You won't.
You're not going to.
Well, myth number 2, wealthy people are just lucky. Are they lucky? Well, this says that, again, 76% of millionaires basically say that you become a millionaire with discipline and hard work. Just like Travis Howe was with us earlier, and we were talking with him and talking about, you know, that's his number one goal is to teach his children self-discipline.
Yeah.
And discipline is the key, like your friend, saving 10% a year.
Yeah, discipline is
if you don't start, you'll never get there.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I think discipline and hard work. I think, you know, timing, you know, it's not getting lucky, but because you've prepared a certain way, when the timing comes up, there is a little bit that seems like luck.
Who was it said that
preparation?
The harder I work, the luckier I get.
The luckier I get. That's right.
That was a good quote.
That's really what it comes down to.
And it's true. You know, people are looking from the outside, seeing, you know, when you're doing well, they see it as luck because they don't see the hard work. You know, I've had friends say it's you know, oh, you're working Brian Patton hours, and I just laugh it off.
Right.
But you know, they don't also realize that at 11 o'clock last night I was preparing for this show.
That's right.
I was reading this book, and I was sending you stuff for us to get ready for the show. So, and I also read one time that where you really make your money is what you're doing on Friday night. If all you care about on Friday night is going out and drinking beer and hanging out with the guys, which is fine every now and then, but if that's all if when you get off work, if that's all you think about, it's what you do in your free time that leads to wealth and success.
That's right.
If you're watching TV, if you're doing those things that really don't support where you want to be, if you're not reading books, Mailbox Moolah,
yeah, leaders are readers.
Oh, I like
That's
that.
It. And
you
it's
got to be
always
reading.
been the case.
You got to be improving yourself. And I'm not saying that to sell
sharpening
a book.
Sharpening the saw.
I don't care if I sell a book. Buy his book. Buy Everyday Millionaires. Buy a book. Get an ebook. Aren't those free?
There was when we were talking about work and discipline, I remember years ago I went online and I looked up the definition of the American dream. Mm-hmm. And it said having the freedom and opportunity that allows all men or women to become successful through hard work and determination alone. And that was I think that was Wikipedia's definition of the American dream. I was like,
you memorized that.
I did. I take all those.
Say that again.
Having the freedom and opportunity that allow all citizens to become successful through hard work, to accomplish their dreams or their goals in life through hard work and determination alone. That's how they define the American dream. It was on Wikipedia years and years ago. The only reason I memorized it because I had some goals and a few different quotes that I had typed up, and I laminated them and put them on the shower wall. I was so busy at that time, I had to convince myself to even take the time to go take a shower. And so that was additional motivation for me to go take a shower to get ready for my day because I had goals and things I wanted to accomplish when I was younger. And so I did remember that. And so people are driven by different things, and it is good to have goals and to read those goals. And every time, occasionally in my life, I become dissatisfied with where I'm at or what I'm doing. And then I pull out a scratch sheet of paper and I just start writing down. I ask myself the question, if my life were perfect right now, I could snap my fingers, have the perfect life, what would it look like? And then I just start writing. I write a whole narrative about my business life, what I would be doing, where I'd be at, my family life, my spiritual life, all of that. And then once I'm done, I feel good. I've just unloaded my perfect life on a sheet of paper. That becomes my new goal. And I do that every time I get dissatisfied. And I read that. And then now my life has become that. Everything I ever wanted to do or, to spend my time doing, that's really kind of what happened. And,
well, a lot of us don't get to where we want to go because we don't have goals. Again, it's coming home from work, sitting down in front of the TV or the internet or whatever it is that you do, and not having a goal, not knowing where you want to go. Because if you don't have a goal, you're not going to take the first step.
There's something said that without vision, the people perish. Doing that, a good scripture that we read.
Scripture.
Yeah, a long time ago. And people have to know where they're going.
Yeah.
And it's not about getting somewhere. It's knowing that the path you're on is the path that's going to get you there. That's what gets people excited.
So what we're saying is you don't get rich quick. Now, are there people that get rich quick? Yeah, in America, that there are people that do that. But majority of millionaires, it took them up to about 49 years old. The average millionaire hits $1 million mark at 49 years old.
The average millionaire becomes a millionaire at 49.
And only 5% of millionaires get there in 10 years or less.
Hey, that's cool.
So it's a slow process. It's an investment process. It's not most people don't get rich in investing in Bitcoin. Matter of fact, a lot of people lost money in Bitcoin. I had a buddy that tried to get me to invest in Bitcoin. This was just last year. And so I don't know. I don't really understand it. And I don't invest in things I don't understand. He sent me articles. Read it. Read it and you'll understand. So I read a little bit. I understood a little bit better, but not well enough
to feel comfortable. And it goes back to what we talked about.
And it's lost thousands of percent since then.
About investors not taking huge risks. Most people think investors take a really big risk, but they don't.
They take calculated risk.
They take very calculated risk. And,
was it Robert Kiyosaki said that risk is not understanding what you're doing. So if you understand what you're doing, it's not risky.
It's not risky. I think that's interesting. So you and I are below the average. That's good on the statistics there. So this reminded me of an interview I heard one time. This was with a gentleman who was a billionaire. One of the millionaires, a billionaire. And they were asking about, what, if you could, what led to your success? How did you get there? And he said that there was a book that he read that was really the best book that he'd ever read on business and finance and investing. So it's called The Tortoise and the Hare. And he figured out that the tortoise always won every time. So the building of assets is the accumulation of assets, a gradual building process,
right? One
brick at a time. And again, it's about the journey, and we're all about the joy is in the journey.
And the problem is when you're young, you don't want to hear that.
That's right. You don't.
But I tell you, you will be old before you know it.
That's right. It's going to happen.
It seems like yesterday I was 18 years old. Now I'm in my 50s. So it comes before you know it. But if you're disciplined, you will appreciate the fact that you were disciplined at some point.
Always. Now, it's a great feeling.
Starting out, is it important to have a prestigious private school education? Is that important?
It's important to educate yourself.
Okay.
You don't have to. So I think really.
Will that in itself lead you to being a millionaire?
Education, though, I think the ability to self-educate well, like reading books and just learning things, will lead you to success, however you define that success.
Well,
yes.
According to this study that Chris Hogan mentions in his book, Everyday Millionaires, 8 out of 10, 79% of millionaires did not attend private schools. 62% of them graduated from public state schools.
So most of them are just public school graduates.
Right.
My grandparents were millionaires and built apartments, and they didn't graduate high school. I told my grandfather one day, I said, look, will you not graduate high school? I don't think you could work at Walmart.
And he was a millionaire, probably.
And he did. He was a millionaire, and he owned apartment buildings and built them. He had been very successful, and I thought it was it's just interesting, kind of the way our world.
Well, what's important is, and I hate to keep throwing out stats, but they're so important, is that only 25% of the millionaires they studied had parents who both went to college. So Is college important? Is education important? Yeah, it's like we're talking about. Go home, on a Friday night and read something.
That's funny.
Educate yourself, but that doesn't mean you have to. And that you have to come from educated parents.
Typically, when you go to those expensive, prestigious private schools and in colleges, like in Ivy League colleges and things, it's mostly building contacts. Is really what you're doing. You build connections and contacts,
and you get a lot of debt.
And you get an absurd amount of debt that you
and you also look at. I wonder if you broke that down into studies, what are you studying? Typically, if you're at a prestigious school, you typically study something, art.
Yeah, that's right.
I know I mentioned art earlier, but maybe historical studies, things that really don't. Unless you're going to be a professor,
things that don't generate the income,
they don't really generate
to pay
income.
back the cost.
Right.
So it is an investment.
State college, vocational college, you're learning a skill.
You should look at it as an investment. If I'm going to invest X number of dollars into this education, in this particular field, what is that going to return? How long is it going to take me to pay that off?
If I'm going to get $200,000 in school loans, maybe I should be getting a job that pays more than $25,000, $30,000 a year when I get out.
So education is
because you will never pay that off.
It's an absolute must, but the amount of dollars you spend on education is not equivalent to the amount of money that you're going to earn in life or when you get out. It's not, and so there's a big disparity there, or it's whatever.
I got you.
Yeah, you got me. Thanks.
When my son was applying for schools, he was all excited about going to Georgia Tech. We went down and talked with him, and one of the graduate students there was talking about, well, he was going to be in computer programming, and the guy was like, well, our average computer programmer makes $60,000 a year, and on average they have $80,000, or I think the average they have $40,000 in debt. And the guy says, well, you can pay that off in about a year because of the money you make. I got thinking, well, what
about living?
I sat down with my son and did a spreadsheet. So, well, okay, first of all, you pay taxes, you pay FICA, you pay all this stuff, and then you got to live, and you got a car. You got a car you got to take care of. You got to have food. So by the time you get done paying all that, you have about $200 or $300 a month left over to put toward college debt. How long is it going to take you to pay off that college debt? It came out to 20-something years. It's like, so this guy who's promoting Georgia Tech didn't understand enough about finance to understand, no, you don't get all that $60,000 in one lump sum and get to spend that on your school debt. It takes a long time to pay off school debt.
So if we think about the first principle toward enjoying the journey, loving the journey, is going to be living within your living beneath your means and managing those expenses, which means when you get a job, when you get an education that'll enough of an education. And I'm a believer in a formal and informal education. My kids, knock on wood, I hope we'll all go to college. And they ask me, how long is college? And I tell them it's 6 years. Mm-hmm. You got 4 years of undergraduate, 2 years of postgraduate.
Or 2 years of trying to figure out what you want to study, then 4 years.
That's right.
That's more like it.
So that's important. But you don't do that. I went to college and got an art degree because it was something I enjoyed, visual communication. Mm-hmm. I didn't do it to make money. I knew I was going to make money in real estate. I was like, well, what do I want to study? I don't want my kids telling me, well, you didn't go to college. So I went to college just so they wouldn't tell me that down the road, because I knew education is a principle.
Right.
But I love being self-educated and continually learning and continually growing, I think, is necessary. So that first principle, though, is having the discipline to save money, live beneath your means, which part of it is tracking everything that you spend.
Every dollar.
Tracking every dollar, knowing where it went, so that gives you the information that you can use to make intelligent decisions, and to be able to forecast forward your expenses. If I'm running a business, often in our business, we have to be able to not only track everything that we spend, but forecast when we generate income in the business, when is that going to run out? How long is that going to last based on our business expenses? And so I have a CFO that will track that information for me, so that I'm not surprised. I never want to be surprised and say, "Oh, we don't have any money." Mm-hmm. In investing, you don't like surprises when you're an investor, and so I think the principle one is knowing that you're managing what you have so well that you're doing a good job. You're going to feel good about it. And that's going to help you love the journey, is because you're like, man, I'm getting good at this. I'm tracking it, we're managing it, we got money that's going that we're putting aside. Once you've been able to do that, no matter how much you earn, much or less, no matter where you are in your career, even if you're just beginning, if you can do that one habit, you're going to love the journey.
I agree. And so back to the private school, taking on debt, the next question is, how much money am I going to make when I get out? Well, the average millionaire made less than six, or actually 1/3 of all millionaires never made six figures. So imagine that. Never made six figures their entire time.
So are you telling me you don't have to make a lot of money to be financially
That's what I'm
well
saying.
off?
You have to be disciplined. You have to be focused, and you have to have a plan.
Oftentimes, those that make a lot of money have problems managing their money because their income's so high. They spend more, and they spend in an undisciplined manner, and they have a hard time with that.
There's a Netflix movie about that, about professional athletes and how quickly they lose their money because of that. They're making so much money, but yet they spend so much.
Yeah, that's right.
As the old saying, it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
It's what you keep. So,
and that's very important.
So if we do the math there, let's just look at what that means. If someone's making $50,000 a year, and let's say they're saving money, let's say you're able to save maybe $10,000 or $20,000 versus someone that's making $100,000 a year. Let's say that they've saved $100,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. They've saved more money, but how long is that money going to last? Right. And so it's relative. If your burn rate is $50,000 a year versus $100,000 or $100,000 a year versus 50, whatever amount of savings, even though you've saved some more than someone else, that's going to last you less because you have too many spending habits.
Right.
Whereas someone that makes less money, they can save much less than you, and it's going to last a lot further. Who was it that Benjamin Franklin, I remember, said he was always, anytime he found out someone that lived on less money than him, he took it as a personal challenge to try to get his expenses down. And it's funny, he's the only person I'm aware of that was never a president of the United States that is on our monetary dollars. He's on the $100 bill.
Right.
He worked for 42 years of his life. Benjamin Franklin, yeah. He worked for 42 years, and then he retired, did whatever he wanted for the other 42 years.
It reminds me, I taught a course at University of Alabama with my book, mailboxmoolah.com. And it was as a group of, I guess they're grad students, maybe just undergrad students, but they're in a real estate course. And I took actual housing. And I was trying to pass along some of this information, is basically how to be disciplined, because I knew when they got out of school, they're going to be faced with, they go from not having much money in their pocket to all of a sudden making $50,000, $60,000 a year. And a lot of them go wild. They go out and buy a fancy new car. So I took the average price of a fancy new, I think it was a Mustang GT or something, which I don't know what it was, $50-something thousand. And I took that and I looked at housing around the University of Alabama, and here's 10 houses, and I pulled them up on the screen. These are for sale right now. You could go buy them for what you would pay for this car. So you can go buy that house, and I did a chart of how much that house would be worth in 20 years, how much that car would be worth in 20 years. That car would be worth nothing in 20 years, and the house would have been worth $200,000 or $300,000 in 20 years. So I'm trying that one decision. That doesn't mean you can't ever buy a new car. What it means is, don't let that be the first thing you buy. It's like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki calls them doodads. Don't buy the doodads. Buy the assets that pay for the doodads.
That's right.
Now, how many people will do that? Not very many. That's the problem.
Successful principles aren't difficult.
Right.
They're just, most people lack the discipline to do it.
Yeah.
Or like or they just don't believe in themselves, or they lack the desire, the drive, or the motivation. Who was it said that Vince Lombardi, or I don't remember who it was, or said that if you don't get up every morning with a burning desire to do something, then you don't have enough goals.
Good point.
Absolutely. So this has been really good.
And, and I think where we'll leave our listeners is, you can do it. You can be financially successful, whether that's a millionaire or not quite a millionaire or a multimillionaire. It's all about discipline. It's all about having a plan. So hopefully we helped with that a little bit today. And
absolutely, this is for the kids.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us. This has been your host, Brian Patton, along with my co-host, Adam Whitmire. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the show. And if you want to check out our website, it's brianpattoncommercial.com and also bpcbusiness.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.